Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough because we've been held back by the judges. You know, probably I say 25 million people were let into our country. Of the 25, many of them should not be here.
So I want to provide some important immigration updates for you today, especially for those who say that I support what Trump is doing, but why are there not more deportations, right? We were promised mass deportations. We're not getting that. He's betrayed us. To which I say, first of all, we'll break down the math, but he's actually doing a lot more deporting than he's being given credit for. But secondly, I don't entirely disagree. We definitely need a lot more, but your answer, your solution, of course, lies in the one big, beautiful bill, which you may remember gave exorbitant amounts of funding to new ICE agents. Now, it's going to take some time for that to go into effect, but we're already getting the announcement this week that up to 10,000 new ICE agents are ready to be deployed. There's something of a backlog of like 200,000 applications waiting for as soon as next year. And this is the trend we are headed in, which is really funny because on one hand, liberals say that Trump is going way too far on immigration, to which we say, you haven't seen anything yet, is the point. And for those of them who claim that Stephen Miller is secretly the shadow president, it's like, really? Then you better be careful for what you wish for, because ladies and gentlemen, you have not seen anything yet. But I do want to provide you these updates in today's video as we're talking about new ICE agents currently being deployed, as well as shakeups in local field director leadership at ICE stations and jurisdictions, right, in terms of the administration basically saying, we're not happy with what we've seen thus far. We need a lot more. And we'll tell you all about what is happening internally within DHS and all that stuff in today's video. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's the best way to support our work. It also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, I will tell you all about all this, but I first of all want to start this video by addressing a criticism I've heard from many on the right this year. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it's coming from a bad place, but it is factually incorrect, which is the claim that Trump is doing nothing because look at the numbers. Barack Obama deported more people than Trump is on pace to do. But that's actually not correct, right? Even the claim actually that Barack Obama was the deporter in chief, and I remember a lot of conservatives would try to use it against liberals in the first term, also not true. I'm proud to say Trump is the deporter in chief because I actually only learned about this year as we were having this conversation. But the reason why Barack Obama's quote unquote deportation numbers were so high is because he lumped in removals with returns. What does that mean? Well, a return is not the same as, oh, an ICE raid goes and rounds someone up or someone gets arrested in immigration court and then they get deported. That is simply someone shows up to the southern border, they get denied and sent back. Well, that is actually the vast majority of Obama's deportations, right? When it came to actual domestic deportations, where you're going through America, finding people, deporting people, those numbers are actually extremely low, as you can see right here, right? Not talking just about people who showed up to the border, which, by the way, happened in very high numbers under Barack Obama, because guess what? He dealt with multiple border crises. I remember even as a child, right, sitting on TV, I think it was on Good Morning America, it was like 2014, and seeing all the migrant caravans coming to the border. And yeah, it's pretty easy to say if you turn those people away, you quote unquote deported them, but that is not actually true. You can see that on average, the Obama administration only had about 300,000 to 400,000 removals per year. Ladies and gentlemen, the Trump administration already has over 500,000. So it is factually true that this is the largest deportation operation already in American history. It is not correct to say that he has not deported as many as Obama. But with that in mind, I still do agree we need a lot more, because after all, you know, it's been a problem in America for several decades, but especially given how extreme Biden went in opening that border, you need to have an extreme number of deportations. However, this is something that even Donald Trump himself recognizes, which he recently brought up in a 60 Minutes interview just last night as they asked him, don't you think you're going too far with immigration? And he's parroting the exact same thing as us. No, the answer is we haven't gone far enough.
When will you declare mission accomplished on immigration?
Well, it takes a long time because Probably, I say 25 million people were let into our country. A lot of people say it was 10 million people, but whether it was 10 or, I believe I'm much closer to the right number. Of the 25, many of them should not be here. But we're cleaning up our cities. I campaigned on crime, but I've done a much better job on crime than I thought. The crime numbers are way down, even though we have a lot more people in our country that really shouldn't be here, and many of them are stone cold, hard criminals.
More recently, Americans have been watching videos of ICE tackling a young mother, tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood, and the smashing of car windows. Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough because we've been held back by the judges, by the liberal judges that were put in by Biden and by Obama.
You're okay with those tactics?
Yeah, because you have to get the people out. You have to look at the people. Many of them are murderers. Many of them are people that were thrown out of their countries because they were, criminals.
And by the way, that's a good point by Trump as well. Every time ICE tries to go out and do something, you either have a woke judge trying to stall and delay the operations by putting in some type of temporary restraining order, or more recently, you have liberal activists running around chasing ICE, oftentimes even trying to kill them. And yet, despite all of that, we're still standing here saying, no, we're going to get the job done and we need to be doing a lot better. That is exactly why just recently, a couple of days ago, ICE leadership underwent a massive shakeup as multiple chiefs of multiple cities were removed from their positions as the agency is seeking to increase those deportations and basically saying to these people, for whatever reason, right, we're not satisfied with the job you're doing. You need to be replaced. We need a lot more.
Move spearheaded by Corey Lewandowski, and it's all in an effort to boost deportation numbers, which are already at more than 500,000 since President Trump took office. So here's what we're talking about. Some of the ICE leadership positions being removed are the heads of ICE here in Los Angeles, in San Diego, Phoenix, Philadelphia, Seattle, El Paso, New Orleans, and Denver, just to name some of them. I'm told some of their replacements will be Border Patrol officials, hand-selected by Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino, whose aggressive and sometimes controversial tactics to arrest illegal aliens have elevated him within the Trump administration. Now, this is significant because Border Patrol and ICE do very different things, and we've embedded with both agencies multiple times. When we're with ICE, they are typically doing targeted enforcement of criminal illegal aliens, always knowing who they are arresting beforehand and often doing hours of surveillance to try and learn the target's schedule. Now, Border Patrol has been much more aggressive. They conduct roving patrols and raids at places like Home Depot, car washes, and flea markets, pretty much arresting anyone they suspect is in the U.S. illegally. Now, replacing ICE leadership with Border Patrol officials signals the Trump administration wants deportation efforts to get much more aggressive, with one Border Patrol source telling Fox, quote, "What did everyone think mass deportations meant? Only the worst?" Tom Homan has said it himself. Anyone in the U.S. illegally is on the table. Now, DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin wouldn't confirm the personnel shakeup in a statement to Fox, saying in part, quote, "While we have no personnel changes to announce at this time, the Trump administration remains laser focused on delivering results and removing violent criminal illegal immigrants from this country." And Dana, a senior Trump administration official, did confirm these personnel moves to Fox, adding that there was a big widespread review of ICE leadership after the One Big Beautiful Bill passed. And I'm told these changes were made based off who the administration feels can execute a mass deportation agenda, with all of that added money and staffing coming from that bill.
Boom. Well, again, liberals, yeah, you haven't seen anything yet. And I think we should be honest that this is good and necessary for two different reasons. First of all, when it comes to ICE themselves, don't get me wrong. I think most ICE agents are sincere patriots, and especially those who are now going to be coming on as a result of Big Beautiful Bill and understanding the political divide that exists in America today. Yeah, I'm sure that they're absolutely going to come in understanding the mission and supporting it. But we also have to be honest. There is a strong case of bureaucratic rot that exists within many of our federal institutions, whether that's the DHS, ICE, FBI especially. I mean, we've seen that happen time and time again throughout the years, where you kind of have these like swamp characters in action, and it probably stands to reason that if historically ICE has not really been used in the way Trump is using it now, right? Again, largest deportation operation in American history, then the leadership of ICE existing that's been there for decades before Trump probably is not well equipped enough to be carrying out exactly what we want to see. But secondly, you notice the replacement decision there, right? Coming from the Border Patrol. By the way, many of you are familiar with Greg Bovino. That is the Border Patrol chief. He's a real hardline guy, right? He's obviously a patriot. But Border Patrol, it's worth noting in comparison to ICE, at least in the past several years, they've seen a lot more. Let me just put it that way. Like, we know where Border Patrol was for the past 4 years. We know how powerless they were, but what they still had to deal with. So this is all to say, right? You have seen this kind of strategy as of late. When they do these immigration raids, you have not only seen ICE agents out there performing it, but you also have Border Patrol, which by all accounts are actually a little more hardened than ICE agents, but secondly, just simply provide a lot more manpower. But that said, let's talk about this question of manpower, because I think this is also so important. Obviously, you're going to need more ICE agents than previously existed, considering you're trying to do a much larger deportation operation than previously existed. That is common sense. But the other issue I've brought up is that when it comes to, say, the civil unrest, right, the phenomenon of criminals and liberal activists constantly chasing ICE around, they're trying to riot outside of the facility and all that, that despite all of these debates over National Guard, the reality soon is going to be that thanks to one big, beautiful bill, ICE, with Border Patrol and DHS and all these things combined, we'll have more than enough manpower to both engage in crowd control and then still have leftover people to carry out the necessary immigration operations, which is exactly why Border Czar Tom Homan is now revealing that already President Trump is bringing on 10,000 new ICE agents and vowing that the historic number of deportations will be blown out of the water this year.
We got to look for that 10.5 million illegal aliens that came across that border. We got to look, that's in addition to 15 million already here. So now the roles change. Now Border Patrol is backstopping ICE on the interior. It's working. Record numbers of removals, arrests. Right now we already have a record number, historic number of arrests and removals this fiscal year, and would bring on 10,000 more agents by mid-January, and we're going to blow this historic number out of the water next year. So everything's working good. It's still under the leadership of acting Director Todd Lyons, under the leadership of Secretary Noem. The results speak for themselves. The agents out there doing what President Trump promised he'd do, is make his country safe again.
And here you have more details on that out of the Dallas Express. The Trump administration is ramping up deportation operations as new ICE agents are currently deploying nationwide. Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said, "We want to really surge those arrest numbers, especially given that one big beautiful bill. We've already received the funding to do it. We're going to be making great progress." Now, McLaughlin thus far has said that DHS received 175,000 job applications for ICE positions as a result of the administration's effort to, quote, get more brave men and women on the ground to do this great work. And, you know, we've already shown you, I'm sure many of you have seen the $50,000 signing bonus and all this other stuff. Let me just say, okay, to any young men out there who are victims of the rampant Gen Z employment crisis. You can't find a job. You don't know what you want to do with your life. Hey, consider this, right? Maybe you don't want to go into, say, the military because it's like, yeah, I'm a patriot, but I don't really want to die in a foreign war for a cause I don't understand. And I don't really want to be a police officer because I don't want to be risking myself to arrest the same criminal over and over again that the woke DA is going to let out of jail. So what do I do with myself? Hey, ICE is calling, all right? No, seriously, I think this is a really great life opportunity. Imagine, too, going into it with your friends when you're young, okay? Literally like patrolling the streets, saving America with the boys. I mean, something to think about, right? But anyways, as previously reported by the Dallas Express, the One Big Beautiful Bill provides a $150 billion funding package for DHS. Nearly $30 billion of that is going to be dedicated to hiring and training ICE agents, including signing bonuses and recruitment incentives. I'm also told, by the way, that a lot of police officers who are disaffected with their department for understandable reasons, this has been pretty appealing to them as well. Actually, one sheriff here in Florida was basically complaining because he said that ICE was trying to poach their officers. And I'm like, well, they're going after candidates, right? They're going after good candidates. What can we say? But anyways, what Secretary Noem and President Trump have been able to do is nothing short of extraordinary. Our law enforcement has faced demonization, injunctions, yes, from activist judges, the sanctuary city politicians trying to prevent us time and time again. We're not giving an inch, and we will deliver on a mandate for the American people. Now, this is important. According to DHS, the Trump administration has deported more than 527,000 unlawful migrants since taking office. That is simply the removals, right? We're also not talking here about self-deportations. According to Tricia, when you add that all up, that includes 2 million total deportations as a whole, and that's what she recently announced, so take a listen.
Well, the president is all about results, as is Secretary Noem. And really, what President Trump, Secretary Noem, and our law enforcement have been able to do in the past 270 days, despite the injunctions, despite the obstruction from sanctuary city politicians and these activist judges, is really nothing short of extraordinary. 2 million illegal aliens exiting the country. That includes 1.6 million deportations and over 500,000 deportations from our ICE and CBP officers. But we're going to be really surging resources. We have 10,000 new ICE enforcement officers are going to be hired in the coming days. So we know that we're going to continue to arrest the worst of the worst off of the streets of America's sanctuary cities.
Yeah, and look, 2 million is a lot of people. I actually, for instance, view a self-deportation, especially if it's recorded through the CBP home app, right? That's a legal process. It's not just that you got on a flight and went home and didn't tell anybody, right? You're going to tell somebody. Is actually a more valid form of a deportation than what Obama was counting, right? Because that's a person who's already here, they've been here, and then they leave, voluntarily or not. That's a lot different, again, than a migrant showing up because they're all enticed by Democrat policies and then saying, no, you have to go home. So that's worth giving a lot of credit for. I'm sure some people will sit there and say that, oh, how do we believe the self-deportation numbers? Because that seems like a very subjective estimate. It's like, okay, I don't know. I don't really care. The point is what? However you measure it, there are actually a lot of deportations happening, but there need to be a lot more. Certainly, you could say that. Well, that is why in many cases, we are also starting to see these ICE operations actually play out. Just yesterday, we did see a massive ICE operation across Houston that resulted in the arrest of over 120 illegal aliens in just one day. That is a lot of people. And guess what? Many were caught driving without a valid license. This is an issue we've been talking about a lot, right? When it came to, for instance, there's a video you'll see on your screen, by the way, of the major fatal semi-truck crashes in California, in Florida. So many of these people in our country, very often illegally, not driving, and as a result, killing Americans. And then how do Democrat governments respond? Oh, that's racist. No, we're going to defend the right of illegal aliens to endanger Americans on the road. And it's pretty interesting. A lot of my perceptions of America, or I guess the problems America faces, have been radically altered by new understandings of the immigration numbers, right? EBT, SNAP, kind of the way in which welfare systems are bankrupting the country, right? We talked about that. And then you realize, oh, shoot, like contrary to this narrative that the economy needs immigration, the immigration we're bringing in is actually destroying the economy because these people en masse, the majority of them are actually tax negatives, not tax positives on America. But even perhaps you could argue that this issue on the roads is the same thing. Because for a very long time, for several years, I've been like, what is wrong with the driving in our country? I will say, I've always thought one thing Europe does do correctly than us. Okay, they're woke and idiotic on many levels. But one thing they do correctly is, in order to get a driver's license, you have to pass a much more stringent test, right? And that's why, for instance, on the Autobahn or whatever in Germany, you don't have to have a speed limit because you can actually trust people to drive. And that is nice. That is something we should do in America. However, right, when you start to look at it, and like this, I had the same kind of epiphany moment on EBT and welfare programs. It's like, are you really actually mad at Americans? Or are the problems on our road, not all, but a lot of them maybe primarily coming from people who have no place, let's say, to be in this country, right? From migrants, from people driving without a freaking license, after all, which is widespread, right? They don't have license, they don't have insurance. And when someone turns out in front of you and doesn't use their signal, and you're like, effing, what is wrong with these people, right? It's like, are you sure that was actually an American? I'm starting to think about this on so many levels, even in some ways where, you know, you go to certain cities ever since Trump's been president, they ever feel a little bit empty to you, right? Like a little bit less traffic. I mean, some are still extremely crowded. Like I'd argue here in Florida, things have basically not really changed all that much. But I go to other states and it's like, where are all the people? And then you correlate that with, well, 2 million self-deportations, things seem a little bit slower. And then they're saying, oh, there's a recession because the economy, the tourism economy or restaurants are getting a little bit less business. It's like, are we sure that's why that's happening? Or is it maybe because like everything that we believed about maybe our country was fake and the things happening to it were fake and everything actually tied back to open borders? And that's like the core of all the problems we faced, which I've been clear, I think basically is where I'm at now, right? I've come to realize, I always took immigration seriously, right? I've been an immigration hawk for several years, but now you begin to realize, wait a minute, like every single major issue that America faces, economic ones, social ones, all of them, they all tie directly back to immigration, right? You wonder why young people can't find a job? I mean, sure, corporate greed, AI, there are factors there too, but a major component is actually immigration, whether that's illegal migration for the low-skilled jobs or H-1B immigration for the high-skilled jobs, right? EBT SNAP, you wonder why our social programs are going bankrupt. You wonder why our healthcare is going so far downhill, right? Is it all because of Obamacare, which is a factor? Or is it also because migration has, again, imported a bunch of tax negatives, right? And that's especially important when it comes to insurance. People who cannot pay, you have to subsidize, the people who can pay have to subsidize them. And we've done what? Imported a bunch of people into our country who cannot pay. So it's just, you know, something, again, we've been talking about and really makes you rethink everything you believe about this country. But yeah, I mean, you love to see it, okay? This is why we need a lot more. We should absolutely reject the pleas of people saying, oh, it's too far, we're doing too much. No, we're not doing enough, okay? Because again, when you understand, like actually the root of most of the problems that America faces actually tie back to migration, you understand, oh, number one issue, it is the most important thing we need to address under this administration. So there you go. All right, that said though, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.